Kids too! David and Goliath.
Long, long ago, in a sunny land called Israel, lived a young shepherd boy named David. Every single day, David took his fluffy sheep out to the fields to eat green grass. He was a very kind and super brave boy, and more than anything, he loved God with his whole heart. He would play his harp and sing songs to the sheep, and they all felt safe with him. But one day, something scary happened. A giant named Goliath from an enemy army showed up. He wasn't just tall, he was huge, like taller than a house. He wore heavy, clunky armor that shone in the sun, and his voice was a big, booming roar that made the ground shake. Every morning and every evening, Goliath would stomp out and shout at the Israelite soldiers, daring anyone to fight him. But everyone, even the bravest soldiers, was terrified. No one wanted to face the giant. Around this time, David's dad asked him to take some bread and cheese to his older brothers, who were soldiers in the army. So, David packed a basket and went to the battlefield. When he got there, he heard Goliath's booming voice making fun of the soldiers and their god. David couldn't believe his ears. "Why is everyone so scared?" he asked. "God is so much stronger than any giant." The king, whose name was Saul, heard about this brave young boy and called for him. David walked right up to the king and said, "Don't worry, I'll go fight that giant." King Saul was surprised. He tried to put his own heavy armor on David, but it was way too big and clunky. David just wiggled and said, "I can't wear this." Instead, David took off the heavy armor. He picked up his trusty slingshot, the one he used to protect his sheep, and walked down to a little stream. He carefully chose 5 smooth, round stones and put them in his shepherd's bag. That was all he needed. As David walked out to face Goliath, the giant saw him and started laughing. "Ha! Are you kidding me? They send a little boy with a stick to fight me." Goliath bellowed, but David wasn't scared one bit. He stood tall and shouted back, "You come at me with a big sword and a pointy spear, but I come to you with the power of God." Then David took one smooth stone from his bag, placed it in his sling, and started spinning it around and around, faster and faster. Whoosh! He let the stone fly through the air. It zoomed straight and true, and bonk, it hit the giant right on his forehead. Goliath's eyes went wide, and then, crash! The huge giant tumbled down and fell flat on the ground. The whole Israelite army erupted in a massive cheer. Yay! They knew it wasn't David's strength that won, but his trust in God. From that day on, everyone knew David as the brave boy who trusted God and wasn't afraid of anything. Thanks for watching our story. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing adventures.
Cain and Abel.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to our story time. Today, we're going to journey back in time to hear a story about two brothers. It's a tale about feelings, choices, and learning from our mistakes. Are you ready? Let's begin. Once upon a time, in a land full of green fields and rolling hills, lived two brothers named Cain and Abel. Cain, the older brother, was a farmer. Every day, from sunrise to sunset, he worked hard in his fields, planting seeds and growing all sorts of yummy fruits and vegetables. Abel, the younger brother, was a shepherd. He loved animals and spent his days taking care of his fluffy sheep and gentle lambs, making sure they were always safe, fed, and happy. The two brothers worked side by side, but sometimes a little seed of jealousy started to grow in Cain's heart. He saw how everyone smiled at Abel's kind heart and gentle way with his animals. It seemed like Abel's work was always noticed, and Cain started to feel a bit left out. He wondered why his hard work didn't get the same kind of attention. This feeling of jealousy was like a little gray cloud that followed him around. One sunny afternoon, the brothers decided it was a perfect day to give a special gift to God to show how thankful they were for everything. Abel, with a big, happy smile, chose the very best and healthiest lamb from his flock. It was his way of giving his absolute best. Cain went to his fields and gathered some of the crops he had grown. He brought his gift, too. When they presented their offerings, God was very pleased with the love and care Abel put into his gift. Seeing this, Cain's heart felt heavy and sad. The little gray cloud of jealousy turned into a big, stormy cloud of anger. Why did it seem like Abel's gift was more special? He felt frustrated and confused, and his face showed his unhappiness. Seeing Cain's troubled heart, God spoke to him gently, not with anger, but with kindness. He said, "Cain, my dear child, why are you so sad and angry? It's okay to have these feelings, but you have the power to choose what to do with them. If you focus on doing good and being kind, your heart will fill with sunshine and happiness again. But if you let this storm of anger control you, it might lead you down a path of trouble." God wanted to help Cain understand his feelings and make a good choice. But Cain was so caught up in his stormy feelings that he couldn't hear the gentle words of advice. The jealousy and anger grew bigger and bigger, like a balloon about to pop. He didn't want to listen. He just wanted the bad feelings to go away, and he wrongly blamed his brother Abel for them. And then, one day, while they were out in the fields together, Cain let his anger take over completely. He made a very, very sad choice. Instead of talking about his feelings or asking for help, he let his anger explode, and he hurt his brother Abel. It was a terrible mistake, one that couldn't be undone. The world felt a little less bright that day. God was deeply saddened by Cain's choice. He came to Cain and explained with a heavy heart that actions have consequences. The anger and jealousy he held inside had caused so much pain. This was a very hard lesson for Cain to learn. His choice had changed everything, not just for Abel, but for himself, too. He would have to leave his home and his fields behind. But even though Cain had made a huge mistake, God's love didn't disappear. He told Cain, "You must carry the weight of your choice, but this is not the end of your story. You have a second chance. From this day forward, you can learn to make better choices. You can learn to control your feelings and choose kindness instead of anger." And so, Cain began a new journey. As he traveled, he had a lot of time to think. He learned that feeling angry or jealous is a normal part of being human. Everyone feels that way sometimes, but what truly matters is what we do with those feelings. We can choose to let them control us and cause harm, or we can choose to talk about them, ask for help, and turn them into something positive. It's a choice we all have every single day, and that's the story of Cain and Abel. It teaches us a super important lesson. Our feelings are visitors, but we are the boss of our own hearts. It's always better to choose kindness. Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed our story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you next time.
Esau and Jacob.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our story time. Today, we're diving into an ancient tale about two brothers and one very big lesson. Did you know that before these brothers were even born, God had a special plan for them? Let's travel back in time. Once upon a time, in a sunny land called Canaan, lived a kind man named Isaac and his loving wife, Rebekah. They wanted children very much, and after a long time, their wish was about to come true. One day, Rebekah felt a strange stirring in her tummy. God spoke to her in a special way, saying, "Two nations are in your womb. The older will serve the younger." Rebekah wondered what this could mean. She didn't know it yet, but a big plan was unfolding. When the babies arrived, something amazing happened. Rebekah gave birth to twins. The first baby came out with red hair and a strong, hairy body. They named him Esau. Then came his brother, Jacob, who was born holding onto Esau's heel. Jacob looked calm and clever from the very start. These brothers were as different as night and day. As they grew up, it was clear they had very different hearts. Esau loved being outside, hunting in the fields, and feeling the wind in his hair. Jacob, on the other hand, loved staying at home, helping his mother, and cooking tasty meals. Sometimes they laughed and played together like the best of friends, but other times they argued. They were different, but they were still brothers, and their lives were about to get very interesting. One day, a hungry stomach led to a very surprising choice. Esau came home from a long day of hunting, and he was starving. The first thing he smelled was the delicious red stew Jacob was cooking. "Please, give me some of that stew. I'm so hungry," Esau begged. Jacob saw an opportunity and said, "I'll give you some stew if you sell me your birthright." The birthright was a special honor for the firstborn son. But Esau was so hungry that he didn't think twice. He agreed, swapping his future promise for a bowl of stew. Many years later, when their father Isaac was very old and couldn't see well, he wanted to give a special blessing to his firstborn son, Esau. But Rebekah remembered the promise from God and helped Jacob trick his father. Sometimes clever plans can cause big problems. Jacob dressed in Esau's clothes and even put animal skins on his arms to feel hairy like his brother. He brought the delicious food to his father, and Isaac, thinking he was blessing Esau, gave the special blessing to Jacob instead. When Esau found out what happened, he was heartbroken. He returned from the fields, ready for his blessing, only to discover it had been given to Jacob. He was so sad and angry that he ran outside crying. Jacob, seeing his brother's pain, felt afraid. He loved his brother but knew he had made a very tricky choice, and it had hurt his family deeply. To keep everyone safe and let things cool down, Jacob had to move far away. Sometimes families need space to learn and grow. Esau stayed in Canaan, and over the years, both brothers grew wiser. Even though they were apart, God's promise stayed true. Their families grew into big nations, just as he had said before they were even born. After many, many years, something magical happened. Jacob decided it was time to return home. He was nervous about seeing Esau, but when they finally met, Esau ran to hug his brother. All the anger and sadness had faded away. They forgave each other and became friends again. Jacob realized that trickiness isn't the best way to get what you want, and Esau learned that patience and forgiveness are incredibly powerful. So, what can we learn from Esau and Jacob? This story teaches us that even if we're very different from our siblings or friends, it's important to treat others with honesty. We shouldn't make big decisions when we're rushed or angry. And most importantly, forgiveness has the power to heal hearts and mend relationships. God had a plan for Esau and Jacob, and he has a special plan for each of us too. And that's the story of Esau and Jacob. It shows us that even when mistakes happen, love, forgiveness, and trusting in a bigger plan can make everything better in the end. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.
Noah's Ark.
Have you ever heard the story of a giant boat, a huge flood, and a beautiful rainbow? Well, get comfy, because today we're diving into the incredible tale of Noah's Ark. A long, long time ago, the world was filled with people who had forgotten how to listen to God. They weren't very kind to each other, and things were getting a bit messy. But amidst all this, there was one man named Noah. Noah was different. He loved God with all his heart and always tried to do what was right. One day, God spoke to Noah with a very important and surprising message. He said, "Noah, I see what's happening in the world, and I'm going to wash it clean with a great flood. But I want to save you and your family because you have been faithful." Then God gave him a huge task. "I want you to build a massive boat, an ark. Make it really, really big with rooms for your family and for all the animals. Can you imagine being told to build a boat in the middle of dry land? Noah's neighbors certainly couldn't. They laughed at him. A boat? Noah, are you crazy? There's not a drop of water in sight, they would say. But Noah's faith in God was stronger than any doubt or ridicule. He trusted God's plan completely. So, day after day, he and his sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth worked hard. They sawed wood, hammered nails, and slowly but surely, this gigantic ark began to take shape, just as God had described. Finally, after many years of hard work, the enormous ark was finished. And then something truly amazing happened. God sent animals from all over the world to Noah. They came to buy two, a male and a female of every kind. Imagine seeing that. Long-necked giraffes, mighty elephants, tiny little mice, slithering snakes, and colorful birds all parading towards the ark. It was a spectacular sight. Noah and his family welcomed them all aboard. Once everyone Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, their wives, and all the animals was safely inside, God himself closed the big, heavy door of the ark. They were sealed in, safe and sound. Then the first drop of rain fell, and another, and another. Soon it wasn't just a drizzle, it was a downpour. The sky opened up, and rain poured down for 40 days and 40 nights without stopping. The water rose higher and higher, covering the fields, the trees, and even the tallest mountains. The whole world was submerged in a vast ocean. But inside the ark, floating on top of the water, Noah's family and all the animals were safe and dry. They had everything they needed, protected from the storm raging outside. After a long time, the rain stopped and the waters slowly began to go down. The ark drifted for many months until one day, with a gentle bump, it came to rest on the top of a mountain range called Ararat. Noah waited patiently to see if there was any dry land. He sent out a raven and then a dove. The first time, the dove came back right away. A week later, he sent it out again, and this time, it returned with a freshly picked olive leaf in its beak. This was a sign of hope. It meant that plants were growing again and the land was reappearing. Finally, after a whole year inside the ark, God told Noah it was time to come out. The big door opened and they stepped out onto fresh, clean earth. The first thing Noah did was build an altar to thank God for keeping them safe through the flood. God was pleased and made a special promise, a covenant with Noah and all of humanity. He promised, "Never again will I send a flood to cover the entire earth." And as a beautiful, colorful sign of this forever promise, God placed the very first rainbow in the sky. It stretched from one end of the horizon to the other, a stunning reminder of God's love and faithfulness. From Noah's family, the world was filled with people once more, starting a new beginning for everyone. So, whenever you see a rainbow after the rain, remember the story of Noah. It's a story about faith, obedience, and God's incredible promise of hope and new beginnings. Thanks so much for watching with me today. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing tales. See you next time.
Joseph in Egypt.
Hello, little dreamers, and welcome to our bedtime story. Are you all snuggled in and ready for a wonderful adventure? Tonight, our story is called Joseph's Amazing Journey. Once upon a time, in a land far away, lived a young man named Joseph. He was kind, he was brave, and he loved God very, very much. He always tried to do what was right, but one day, something very unfair happened. Joseph was put in prison, even though he hadn't done anything wrong at all. Imagine how sad and lonely that must have felt. But even in the dark, quiet prison, Joseph wasn't truly alone. He knew God was still with him, and he kept his heart full of trust and hope. While he was in prison, Joseph didn't just sit around feeling sorry for himself. Oh no, not Joseph. He helped everyone he could. He was friendly and kind to the other prisoners and the guards. He shared his hope and his smiles, and little by little, the gloomy prison started to feel like a much friendlier, happier place. Joseph showed everyone that even in a tough spot, a little bit of kindness can make a big difference. One day, two important men were brought to the prison. One was the king's baker, and the other was the king's butler. One morning, they both woke up looking very worried. "We've had the strangest dreams," they said, "and we don't know what they mean." Joseph, with his gentle smile, said, "Don't worry. God can explain dreams." And just like he said, Joseph listened to their dreams and told them exactly what each one meant. And guess what? Everything he said came true. The butler was set free and went back to serve the king, just as Joseph had foretold. A long time passed, and it seemed like Joseph might be forgotten in that old prison, but then something huge happened. Pharaoh, the great king of all Egypt, had a dream, a very big, very scary dream that none of his wise men could understand. The king was troubled. Then the butler suddenly remembered the kind man from prison who could understand dreams. "I know someone who can help," he exclaimed. So Pharaoh called for Joseph. Guards rushed to the prison and brought Joseph to the magnificent palace. Standing before the most powerful man in the land, Joseph wasn't afraid. He listened to the king's dream about 7 healthy cows and 7 skinny cows and 7 full ears of corn and 7 withered ones. Joseph calmly said, "God is showing you what will happen in the future. There will be 7 wonderful years with lots of food for everyone. But after that, there will be 7 years of famine, when no food will grow and everyone will be hungry." Pharaoh was completely amazed. He had never met anyone so wise. He looked at Joseph and said, "Since God has shown you all this, there is no one as wise as you. You will be in charge of my whole palace, and all my people will obey you." Just like that, Joseph went from being a prisoner to being the most powerful man in Egypt, second only to the king himself. Joseph didn't waste a single moment. He worked very hard during the 7 good years. He built huge storehouses and filled them to the brim with grain and food, saving up for the difficult times ahead. He was preparing for the future, just as God had shown him. When the 7 good years ended and the famine began, the land became dry and people grew hungry. But thanks to Joseph, Egypt had plenty of food. People came from all over the world to buy grain in Egypt. One day, a group of travelers arrived from a faraway land, hoping to buy food. Joseph looked at them, and his heart skipped a beat. They were his own brothers. The very same brothers who had been unfair to him so many years ago. They didn't recognize him at all. He was now a powerful Egyptian ruler, dressed in fine clothes. Joseph wanted to see if his brothers had changed. He wanted to know if their hearts were kinder now. He tested them, and soon he saw that they had learned their lesson. When his youngest brother, Benjamin, was in trouble, his older brother, Judah, bravely stepped forward. "Please," Judah begged, "let me stay as your servant instead of him. I cannot bear to see our father's heart break." When Joseph heard this, he knew his brothers had truly changed. Tears of joy filled Joseph's eyes. He could no longer hide who he was. "I am Joseph," he cried out. "I am your brother, the one you thought was gone forever." His brothers were shocked, but Joseph wasn't angry. He hugged them and forgave them completely. He invited his father, Jacob, and their whole family to come and live with him in Egypt. There, they had plenty of food and lived together happily for many, many years. God's blessings were with them, just as they had always been with Joseph. And so, Joseph's amazing story reminds us of something very important. Even when life seems unfair or you feel sad and alone, always trust that good things are coming. Be kind, be brave, and know that you are loved and watched over. The end. Sleep tight, little ones, and have the sweetest of dreams. Good night.